59J, neck on 9. Let's go. Yeah.
I'm sideways in a bucket ducking 5-0.
Homie, are you down the ride?
Rims spinning, windows tinted and my eyes low.
Hey, yo, what's good with everybody, man? I hope everybody's having a productive day, feeling blessed, and like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. So with that being said, man, it's in a comment the other day, and like I said, I really don't even read the comments no more. Well, I try to skip past the negative ones, and I acknowledge the positive ones. Can't please everybody, no matter what I do. But I seen this one, and I was like, you know what? You know, he sounds like it's coming from a genuine place. So I'm going to answer it, even though he was disrespectful. So let's get into this conversation. That being said, hit that subscribe button, hit that like, always leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Check the links in the description for my Apple and Spotify music. Go ahead and run my streams up. And you can check out my playlist section on my YouTube channel and check out my music right there. Thank you guys for you guys' time. Most importantly, thank you guys for you guys' support. Now, I'm not going to read the comment verbatim, but it resonated in the back of my head. I took a screenshot of it, but I want to say this is coming from an active Norteno who left a comment on my comment section, right? Because I think his profile had the Huelga bird on it or X4 or something in that nature that identified him as a Norteno. And like I said, man, there's actives that support my channel, leave a comment, understand what I'm saying is, relevant to a degree, right? And then there's an active that just talks smack and call me 5'9" gay. So I was like, hey. So what he said was, he goes, man, why don't you ever talk about the good that Norteños do? That I'm always talking about the bad that Norteños do. So he's starting to see that I'm just becoming a snake. I was like, damn, I got to be a snake because I speak of the truth, the realities of it. I just don't talk about the good. There's the good, the bad, and there's the ugly. And I was like, all right, I'll be Jake the Snake Roberts. He was a very iconic character. So I'm gonna answer this one, man. I think he deserves this one because, like I said, I think he understands the bad, but he's like, man, highlight the good a little bit, man, not just the bad. See, the hard thing about highlighting the good is what you've seen today, what you've seen in the past 5 or 10 years, what you've seen all over YouTube by ex-Norteños who are still connected, still get relevant information, have provided relevant information. It's hard to elaborate on the good because for a Norteño, like I said, I was Norteño from 13 all the way to like maybe 27, 28 before my removal. For a long time, I seen a lot of good. For a long time, I believed there was a lot of good. When you read the Norteño education, all the clecha that I've been exposed to, that I still have memorized, that's still in the back of my head, that I still think about, I can show you the goodness in the literature if it was applied for goodness. So you're going to read in Norteño education, betterment for the people, advancement demands change. But why is it that all throughout this whole decade or two, it's just became another criminal organization? Yeah, you can title it and phrase it the Norteño struggle because when you define the struggle, when you talk about the struggle, you talk about history. You talk about how the Sureños were specifically designed. Look at the Sureño, the acronym. They were designed specifically to target Northern Hispanics, Northern Chicanos, the Northern population. That's what they were designed for in the beginning. That's why Norteños like Corny and everybody else and Gallegos, they pretty much reached out to the NF, or Copas, Copas, reached out to the NF for training for weaponry and warfare, how to establish COCs, how to secure these mainlines like the NF did. Because they were getting abused, they were getting mistreated, they were getting targeted. So the NR, the Norteño concept, the Norteño identity was birthed out of warfare to fight for inmate rights, to fight for equal rights. So if you take all the concepts in the Norteño education and you apply them right, you would understand that there's a lot of good. There was a lot of purpose and meaning in the beginning. But it was just in the beginning. It's not what you see today. It's not what you see like the NF member named Tigre from Hayward, from DGF, coming out of the federal penal system, and now he's going back to jail facing charges because he decided to assault a 17-year-old kid in Hayward to join his gang. Gave him the option, either you join or you get beat up, and they beat the kid up. A 26-year-old and a 46-year-old. And he happens to be an NF member with Nuestra Familia tatted on his stomach that he got in the federal penal system, coming out punking kids and forcing them to join gangs. That's what today's generation looks like. And throughout the years, you've seen so much backstabbing, so much bloodshed that it's hard to see the good. It's hard to see what the struggle was really intended for, because when you start going down through the historical sense, look at the 80s and 90s. How many NF members killed women for selling dope and then turning informants? How many NF members killed prostitutes for not paying a 10% tax? How many NF members were killing drug dealers for a 10% tax? All they're doing, all the NF was and really is now, is just imitating the Mexican mafia. All they became is a criminal organizations. So that's all the Norteño identity and the NF identity is a criminal organization. Criminals. They criminalized the mind frame. Because the Norteño mentality that I was taught, that got corrupted by prison politics and, powerful minds, there was a big difference. If you learn how to apply the education, if you really study the history and what they wanted Norteños to become, I can tell you right now, 70-80% Norteños haven't abided by that. So it makes it hard to really elaborate on the goodness that the Norteño struggle or the Norteño identity was supposed to be. But when I do finally I'm going to take a month where it's just going to be all Norteño education, and I'm going to cover it all. I'm going to break it all down word for word, from the bonds to the format, and I'm going to show you how I was educated. And I'll point out the goodness that could have been applied, that could have made a big difference to the Norteño identity, but it didn't. Because Norteños cost so much red on red nowadays. To be a Norteño is just to be a Norteño. In reality, identifying one another as a Norteño meant, you were brothers, man. You had a struggle. You had a purpose. You had a meaning behind your name. Now it's like, hey, I'm a Norteño from this barrio, and I don't like that barrio, and I don't like this fool, and I can do whatever I want because I answer to this big homie, and this big homie will do what I say and ask and do me the paro and give me the blessings. There was so much power that was established between the NF and the NR that people became abusive with that power. If you read all these operations, Red Soul, Valley Star, Street Sweeper, Red Reaper, you'll see the corruption within the Norteño identity, within the Norteño struggle. Norteños taking out other Norteños. See, look, I'll point out a goodness that turned bad for you. One example. I can't get into too much because I can go for days. I can go for hours, right? When you establish a strong front in a facility before the peace treaty, I'm talking about way before the peace treaty, when the Norteño struggle was my struggle, when I had to struggle to establish main lines because Southsiders didn't want us present. That was the struggle. So when you think of that, to establish a strong front is you have to implement safety and security. That's the goodness about the Norteño struggle, the safety and security. The way that the Norteño mentality and the training, we train one another to protect each other, to defend each other, to secure a tier, to secure a cell, to secure a shower, to secure a table. It was all equal rights per bond number 1. All incentives and the privileges tied to an inmate. So as an inmate, we're allowed to have a pull-up bar. We're allowed to have a table. We're allowed to have a yard. We're allowed to go to yard. We're allowed to go to yard with our shirts off. If a Southerner, black, or a white is allowed to be on his yard, we're allowed to be on his yard. It was about equal opportunity. It was about equal rights, fighting for equality, a great concept. But that concept got abused after a while, because as much as Norteños were supposed to be fighting for equal rights, Norteños are not issuing one another equal rights, because they're abusing the due process system. They're abusing the COC command. They're abusing, big homies' juice cards and privileges. And they're abusing their positions of authority and taking one another out. Because the biggest thing that you're going to see about prison in itself, no matter what faction it is that when factions are not going to war with each other, they're slaughtering their own. And that's the God honest truth. Norteños get removed more at the hands of the own Norteños than they do a Southerner, a white, or a black. Why do you think the dropout rate's so big? Norteño, you can water it down as much as you want. You can deny it as much as you want. But Norteños drop out more because of the program that's being forced on them. After a while, it just became too strict, too disciplined, too abusive, too dictating. There's one thing to implement safety and security. Hey, don't do this because this could happen. Don't do this because you could lose your life. Don't do this because you can instigate a war. I understand that. I understand that protecting one another, securing the grounds that you choose to walk on is important. That way you don't lose your life to the hands of the enemy or the opposition. But when it becomes so strict and so disciplined and governed by abuse, by people that just want to just throw their weight around, throw their power around, Where half the time a Norteño can't be a Norteño because he's too worried about getting sliced up by his own people. I think that's the biggest struggle with today, is that Norteños don't even have to fear the opposition no more because of the peace treaty. Ain't nothing's gonna happen. The big homies are not gonna let us go to war with a Southerner and white. Today's Norteños might not ever get to experience what it's like to go to war with a Southerner, or walk up out that cell and the whole Southern faction is like, you know what, we're done. We want this yard for ourselves. We're just gonna slaughter all these fools and get them out of here. A lot of today's generation Norteños will never have to endure that struggle. The struggle they endure now today is getting deemed by another Norteño, getting written up, getting struck up by another Norteño, and have approving it, saying, yeah, get rid of them. Why do you think there's so many fine policies and discipline policies and restitution policies? And dude, because the dropout rate got so big that I think the NF finally realized, like, man, we're losing a lot more manpower than we should at the hands of our own. So instead of just, automatically deeming them and smacking them and them going to the other side, joining these SNY gangs, we'll just tax them $500. I'm pretty sure they can afford that. The bad outweighs the good. That's what makes it so hard. Yeah, I can sit here and point out some good aspects about the Norteño struggle, but why should I? Norteños can do that on their own. I just got to see firsthand by myself. Bro, I used to sit in a cell and Xerox B&L bundles faithfully. And dude, if you do realize how many names are on that B&L bundle, yeah, a lot of them probably just locked it up because they were tired of the program. So what? Doesn't make him less of a man because he chose not to listen to any more rules and regulations and policies and procedures and abide by the next man and follow the next man. How's that make him less of a man? To you guys, that's considered coward. So you're quick to view your own people as cowards. Even if a Norteño on the streets didn't decide to drop out, but he decided to say, you know what, I don't feel like going back to the hood, man. I feel like raising my kids. I feel like going to work now. I don't feel like going out there and partying because anything could happen. I can get killed with a straight bullet by a Southerner, since Southerners are deep in Northern California now. I don't want to deal with the homies and get caught up in some mess, man, and lose my freedom again, man. I just want to raise my kids and, every once in a while go to the hood and say, what's up? Norteños frown upon that nowadays. You can't even be a Norteño and say, you know what, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to put in work no more. But I want to hold the label because I'm from Northern California. He could possibly get deemed and jumped out of his own hood because of that. Me personally, I think the NF becoming what they have been lately and who they're trying to emulate made it a lot worse for people. They could have been their own entity. Back in the 90s, 80s, and the early 2000s, Nuestra Raza, Northern Structure, was its own entity. The NF didn't get involved in Nuestra Raza politics. They did their own thing. They were the mob. They were the organization. Now they dictate everything that a Norteño does, when Norteños back in the day used to just take care of each other and report to them whenever they could. But now that the NF is present a lot more frequent and getting their hands into everything, now they're just being puppeteers. And the Norteño doesn't know what a Norteño is anymore. They have to sit. A Norteño has to really sit there and be like, wait for the NF to give them instructions. Wait for the NF to tell them what to do. See, that wasn't like that back in my day. Norteños we had our own mentality. We had our own concept of brotherhood. We just took care of each other. But even then, Norteños took out Norteños. So when I used to Xerox that B&L, hundreds and hundreds, and San Jose has its own B&L. Sacramento has its own B&L. Tulare County has its own B&L. And then you have the regular B&L where it's just a bunch of names from all these other different cities. And those B&Ls are not small. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of names. All we did was push our own people away. That's all it was. Norteños that abuse their power, the NF that abuse their power, are the real reason why a lot of Norteños drop out and walk away from the life and join these other SNY gangs. It is what it is. You can deny it as much as you want. You can hate me for saying it as much as you want. But we did it to ourselves, bro. That's all we did. Because if you really reflect on the Norteño struggle and the basis of it, it's always been about, our stance against the opposition, against oppression. But now we just oppress our own. We just been hypocritical this whole time with the propaganda that we preach to one another, like, hey, man, we got to fight oppression. Oppression used to be the administration not letting us walk these yards. Oppression used to be the Sureños not letting us walk these yards, telling us to keep our shirts on. If we get too deep, they're going to remove us. The whites siding up with the South to go against us. Oppression used to be the violations of the court systems. Oppression used to be like the gang enhancements that are getting every Norteño indicted off the crimes that he commits. Oppression goes a long way. But Norteños nowadays are not fighting no oppression. They're just fighting each other. They're slaughtering each other. They're paying attention way too much to each other because they ain't got no other war to fight no more. See, the goodness that I've always seen is, like I said, safety and security. I used to love to come out my cell and be like, hey, bro, you got a banger? You willing to use a banger? You willing to defend me like I'm willing to defend you? Yeah. But now, hey, bro, you willing to carry a banger? Nah, fool, I ain't trying to risk it like that, but I'll fight though. Oh, bro, you a sucker, man. You a coward, man. You ain't down like I'm down. Now you start looking at your homies different. Homies are quick to gangbang on the streets, Vadio warfare, red on red crime. Oh, man, we're beefing over this Honda. We're beefing over this turf. We're beefing over this city. We're beefing because of some party that went haywire. They forget that it's about Norteños. It's about Vadios now. And when they go to jail, they immediately see a big homie. If this Norteño gets to that big homie first, hey, fool, them fools instigated it, bro, and started it, bro. Man, go ahead and whack him. And then this dude gets whacked. But if he gets there first, he's going to report that same Norteño. Hey, man, they started it first, man. They threw the first shot, bro. They shed first blood, man. Rambo, whack him. And all these NF, these new generation NFs, man, they're so in love with their power. Hey, man, if I can get it done, I can get somebody whacked. I'm going to get somebody whacked because it builds my resume up that I'm actually taking care of business. I'm actually enforcing the law. Red on red crime. Norteños make a lot of big speculation all over social media, which I don't really care for. They'll acknowledge Southerners from Southern California as being real Sureños, but they got a big issue with upstate Sureños, and they make fun of upstate Sureños. But yet you guys are still too busy targeting each other when you got upstate Sureños in your guys' neighborhoods. Which I'm not trying to instigate no warfare, let them do what they do. There's a peace treaty for a reason. If your big homies can be at peace, you guys can be at peace, but you guys want to disacknowledge that. The harsh reality is a lot of Norteños are hooked on drugs. A lot of Norteños are doing K2. A lot of the Norteños are in the feds doing K2. When a Norteño mentality has always been no hard drug policies. But yet Norteños continue to indulge, even in the States. A lot of Norteños are getting whacked by NF members for indulging in drugs. Do you think the NF's walking around saying, hey, bro, trying to put homies into rehab, getting homies clean, trying to redeem the Norteño identity? No, they're like, well, this fool's getting high when he's not supposed to, and he's paying a Southerner or he's paying a black some money. He ain't giving me that money, so he's no good to me. Whack him. It's just hard to really point out and highlight the goodness about the Norteño struggle that I used to once see, that I used to once believe in, when all you see is bloodshed within the Norteño struggle in itself by the hands of NF or by the hands of their own. But I'm not here to talk about goodness. Because if I was here all over YouTube shedding light on the goodness of, joining these organizations, then I'll just be encouraging a lot of these young kids that I see today that are just misguided, that are dumb, that don't know, have no clue of what they're doing, to join these gangs and continue to join these gangs. And that is not my prerogative. That is not my agenda. I'm going to point out the realities. Yes, if I point out good, then I point out good. If I point out bad, then I point out bad. Either though, I'm going to give you guys both sides of the coin. That way, at least these kids have an idea of what they're getting themselves into. That way, there's no excuses. I can't convert the world and change everybody's mentalities, but I've done a big difference, whether a lot of people care to acknowledge it or not. I made a big difference. I even made a big difference with adults. Some people get at me like, man, I'm acting, bro, but I ain't going back to that life, bro. I'm just gonna do me. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna change this. I have so many people in my DMs like, hey, man, I'm started practicing sobriety, man. Show me a couple of things. Tell me a couple of hobbies I can adopt so I don't have to turn to drugs. I've helped a lot of people out, and that's because what I'm doing is for the greater good. Is the goodness. Is the betterment for the people. The betterment of the people that I used to believe in, Norteños believed in. But Norteños are not taking care of their neighborhoods. Norteños are not getting the younger generation to stay in school and avoid prison. You're seeing more kids do the same thing that these Norteños did. And these Norteños that have already did it or continue to do it or are in prison for it are proud that these Norteños are following in their footsteps. Where's the good in that? That's why you're hardly ever going to hear me talk about the good. So I hope I answered your question to the best of my ability. In no way, shape, or form do I want to instigate anything between me and you. That was the best that I could answer for that. Like I said, my apologies in advance. I hope you didn't take this the wrong way. I answered your question to the best of my ability. But that's my truth. And that's the best way that I can put it. And I can't put it any other way, to be honest with you. So with that being said, like I always say, is one life, one chance. When you got one chance to do this right, let's get it done. Peace.